Welcome to Bumpass Hell, the coolest geothermal area in Lassen Volcanic National Park. There are a couple ways to hike to Bumpass Hell. The way that we took started at the trailhead for Cold Boiling Lake. There is a second way on the designated Bumpass Hell trail, but it gets covered in snow and it still was inaccessible in early July when we went. So this is a little longer way to get there, but I honestly think it's a prettier hike and it's well worth it if the main trail is closed. The first half mile or so is pretty flat, and it goes through the area that was completely destroyed by the Dixie Fire. I believe it was in 2022 or 2023, so it's pretty sad to see how bad the trees were all damaged. But once you get past that first section, you'll get to Cold Boiling Lake. It's called Cold Boiling Lake because the water's cold, but the geothermal activity underneath the water makes gas rise and creates bubbles, so it looks like it's boiling even though it's cold. The trail continues around Cold Boiling Lake, and then you get this really cool contrast where you have the green ferns on the ground and the black burnt trees that just give striking views. And from here, you're going to start gradually going uphill, and it's going to be a gradual uphill pretty much the whole way to Bumpass Hell, but it's not too bad. I think about 1,000 feet of gain over 2 miles or so. And on the way, you'll pass little streams and waterfalls that really add to the scenery of the hike. And just keep in mind, this isn't the main Bumpass Hell trail. That trail is usually closed until the end of July because of snow. We parked at the Kings Creek area for the Cold Boiling Lake trailhead and took that through to Bumpass Hell. It's another popular option. There were a bunch of people out on the trail, but it's not nearly as popular as the main Bumpass Hell trail when that one is open. And this one's about 5 miles round trip, 5.5 if you include the time to walk around Bumpass Hell, where the other main trail is 3.5 to 4 miles round trip. This hike just changes so much because you go from those flowing waterfalls to Bumpass Hell, which is named Bumpass Hell because back in the 1800s, there was a guy whose last name was Bumpass who was walking in the area, and his foot fell through the ground into these boiling mud pits. And it basically degloved his foot and his leg, which is pretty morbid, but it was so bad that he had to get it amputated. And once he got back to civilization or wherever he was from, they asked him where he had been and what happened, and he said that he had been in hell. So that's how the place got its name. It was about at this point that the smell of Bumpass Hell really hits you. If you've ever been to natural hot springs, you probably know that familiar sulfur smell that is not a very good smell, but this was that times 10. It was really, really potent. And right through here is when you're going to get your first good view of the area. The mud pots have this really cool grayish blue color, which is just caused by the chemical reactions that are going on due to the heat from all the volcanic activity. Just keep following the trail down and you'll hit this little viewing area, and then if you keep going, eventually you'll make it onto the boardwalk. The boardwalk used to be a lot bigger. I think it was almost twice the size, but 5 or 6 years ago, they had to tear out a big portion of it because it was just too unsafe. This area is always changing, and it used to go out a lot closer to those steam vents, but it was starting to fail, and so they had to close it and just remove it because there was a chance that it could collapse at any time. And you can see right here that somebody lost their hat. It seems like it wouldn't be that big of a deal to just go grab it, but this area is really unstable and you can easily fall through it, so it's probably smart that they didn't, because they could have ended up like poor old Bumpass. And at this point, we finished walking across the boardwalk and we're on a little lookout area. This lookout area is where we would come in at if we had taken the main Bumpass Hell trail, the one that's closed because of the snow, but instead we had to go past it, and that's why we came in on the opposite side. And that gross sulfur water actually feeds a pretty big creek that we could see on the hike up, and eventually it goes down into a lake. So that's kind of gross to think that people probably drink that at some point down the line. I know it gets diluted, but still, it's a pretty intense smell when you're here. Bumpass Hell is one of the coolest spots in Lassen, and I'd highly recommend doing this hike if the main trail is closed, because you have to see it if you're up here. Thank you for watching, and I hope you enjoyed.